Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you work your A game. A made no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game, better bring your A game.
So earlier this year, in July, AEW did a record gate, or so we thought, at Wembley Stadium for All In. So according to AEW, they put it out that AEW sold 81,035 tickets. Now that is under independent audit. So the real number is going to come out. Tony Khan has objected that to an independent audit, and that is ballsy, by the way. And I think that's very cool of him to do, and I think he deserves respect. Brandon Thurston did some investigation, and he got the turnstile report. So the number of people that actually entered through the turnstiles, right? And he got it, and it was 72,265. This would be fans in attendance for All In. So that would not be the record, the attendance record, nor did they ever claim they had the attendance record. They just claimed they had the ticket sold record. But there was a claim out there that they had the attendance record. But that's actually 8,500 short of the WrestleMania 32 record of 80,079. I think people are trying to downplay this and say that it wasn't as big a deal as it was. 72,000 people in attendance is a pretty damn big deal.
Did you hear Dave talk about this?
He said that, like, I heard something about there was like a 10%, drop rate, essentially, like,
average,
and that's a pretty standard thing. Yeah,
across the board. WWE has the lowest rate at 9. Yeah. Right. So upon this is major sports too. Upon average, major sports teams will, because he said because of the scalper market. Right. There's so many tickets sell early. Scalpers buy so many of them, and then it's on average 10% lower. So this would be the same thing for any WrestleMania event, which again, those numbers are worked anyway. So I think that a lot of people are going to get themselves worked into knots over this number, which is fine. Tony got his account, and then like Sam Alvarez talked about, he goes, I didn't count. I didn't go through the turnstile, right? Because he was there as media.
Yeah, so, well, media shouldn't count.
Media shouldn't count, but that's correct. But like, so that's the thing. It was like, there's a lot of people in the building. Tony said 90, maybe he said around 90, probably wasn't around 90. But I believe 85,000 tickets are sold. He put his money where his mouth is and let it be an independent audit. If they never said anything more than this is what we sold. Yeah,
he said 81,035 tickets sold. Did you see that Will Ospreay got a damn tattoo of that number?
Will Ospreay, man.
I love, dude. How could you not love that guy? Like, he's a bumbling idiot, and I love him so much.
Oh, I adore. He reminds me of so many wrestlers I've coached over the years. Just lovable dumb jocks. I think he's great. It's so funny how the UK media, like, remember those promos on Dynamite that everybody's like, "Oh, these are really good," and the UK media guys are like, "This is fucking awful." And
they've hated him for a long time.
I know there's a real thing there, but I think Will's great. I think he's a meathead. I think he's going to get paid. Hopefully, hopefully somebody pays.
Hopefully him. he gets paid a ton of money. So anybody saying that that was still not a success, even though just because they don't have the attendance record, as of right now, until it's proven otherwise, they have the tickets sold record. Because WWE works their numbers, and I don't know exactly how many tickets were actually sold for WrestleMania 32. One would assume that it's higher than 80,079 of the turnstile count of the people in the building, but we just don't have that number yet. And those could be comps and all that stuff. But yeah, the scalper market, that's a lot of people weren't able to offload tickets, and so the seats didn't get filled. I mean, that's not that big of a deal.
No, there's a ton of people in the audience, and like WWE counts like the janitorial staff. They count the guys working. They count the people in the cameras. They count the people selling hot dogs. Like, they're counting, like the people outside, like parking cars. Like, and that's a work number. It's what it is.
Yeah. So WWE uses the number that they use in the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. I was part of an exercise for an aircraft crash, and the number they call is they said we had 235 SOBs, and I was just like, what? And they go, and I was like, and I elbowed my flight commander. I was like, what's he saying? SOBs? I was like, am I am I the only one think that's hilarious? And he goes, it means souls on board. I was like, oh, okay. So they're talking pilots. They're
way funnier the other way.
Flight attendants. And I was just like, and then I got back to my flight. I was like, yep. And I was briefing them on the scenario, this aircraft crash. Yeah, we had 235 sons of bitches on board, and everybody started busting out laughing. My boss just looked at me. He goes like, you couldn't resist, could you? I was like, no, sorry. SOB stands for souls on board. That's a
souls on board.
Yeah. So WWE uses that. So if they consider, pets as souls, all the workers there, the media members,
WrestleMania 3, Frankie the Parrot was there. That's a that's a body. Matilda, she counted. Yeah.
Matilda better damn count. She's a legend. Comment from the chat. This comes from Christopher Carter. He got here a bit late, but as Lanza said, our boss Joe Lanza, the very handsome and not bald guys. He does not use Nugenics, and he is not bald, despite what that AEW sign said. Joe Lanza said, got here a bit late. As Lanza said, I tend to agree, though, that I'm not sure y'all do, as I just arrived. This is just another number to deal with and all the noise. Yeah. That's all it is. It was just, I knew people would want to hear us talk about it, so I thought I'd bring it up. I think the bigger story is, the bigger story is AEW's domestic ticket sales. Those are like, I typically am like kind of an AEW defender when it comes to this area, but it's scary. Like they had for this week's Dynamite in Cincinnati at 2,100. And then Grand Slam, as of right now, or actually as of this morning, my cousin Stat Nerd Joe texted me this morning, said around 6,200 are out. They're 6,200, and they're currently offering buy one, get one free deals. And it was about half of what they did last year. So last year they had a little over 12,000 and well under the 20,000 from 2021. So, man, that is tough. And he sent me he sent me the, I think Brandon Thurston had like an Excel sheet. He sent me the Excel sheet, and they're just from last year to this year, they're just way down everywhere in ticket sales domestically.
Yeah, that's the issue too. You're going to see like the promotion isn't hot right now. Talking with a buddy of ours who's been saying this is going to happen for a while. And he triggered this all back to stuff that started going wrong in early 2022, and it's coming to roost now. And I think Tony's issue is he believes in these traditions and he wants to run these venues multiple times in a row. And that's his ego talking. Like WrestleMania 3 was that 93,000 work number. WrestleMania's 4 and 5 were in Trump Plaza. They probably could have gotten a lot, but I mean, like, they didn't try to run something big the next year. They did it 6, and then 7 they tried and it didn't go good. So I mean, this happens, right? Like,
well, hold JD, hold on. 7, they were gonna run the LA Coliseum, but Sergeant Slaughter had so much heat, it was just way too dangerous for them to run the arena because he was such a good heel. That's the story.
Yeah, just so happened that it was the exact 14,000 that fit just fine in the LA in the LA Sports Arena.
Sports Arena, yeah. That Roddy Piper used to run in 10 years prior to that, but yeah.
He was at the Olympic Auditorium. That's a different
arena, Olympic, right? That's right.
Yeah. This is I think that's what the Lakers play at the Forum. I forget who the Sports Arena. Anyway, this happens. They're down. Like, and people have been talking about the product and they've been unhappy with it for a bit now, right? And the creation of Collision didn't help. Like, they had a lot of shit thrown on their plate this year. Some of it was self-imposed, some of it was WB, and it's coming home to roost now because product. I think the booking coming out of the all weekends has been better and more focused. But again, it's like the stuff you do now. I think Jim Cornette says too. The stuff you do now well will show up on your ticket sales 4 to 5 months down the line. Right. Problem with Dynamite is when they release when the company is hot, like WWE right now, they're hot. They can open up tickets and you don't got to announce shit. You're just gonna sell them. When the AEW had that for a long time too. I remember I couldn't get tickets to All Out 2019 because like you couldn't touch them. When you're hot, you don't need nothing. When you're cold, you need everything. Nothing works. And I think that's the problem right now is the program is super cold. And even though it's a little bit better now, they're paying for the stuff that people were unhappy about around Double or Nothing time. Right?
Yeah.
That's how these things work. And it's going to take months to fix it. I think this is why I think that max deal is imperative because you're not going to get those numbers up. I think they need to stop running the NBA arenas and stop listening to these WWE guys. Go back to running the smaller college arenas. Start doing some freaking boots on the ground. Jeff Jarrett, I love the guy, but he's in charge of live events, and all of a sudden our live events division has been going down this year. So I mean, maybe your focus should not be on playing with Leatherface. Like, it's time to ask some seriously hard questions right now. Like, this is the problem with hiring people who come from the other place, is they want you to run things. Well, this is how we did it in WWE, and I don't think Tony Khan put the foot down and said, "Motherfucker, this isn't WWE. Can't do it this way."
You know, and early on in the history of AEW, when they were running these college arenas are not small, by the way. You can still get, you know, quite a few thousand people in there.
Yeah, the one in Cincinnati is a lot smaller than the NBA.
They're not. Yeah, they're not NBA, but they're still pretty decent sized arena. The cool thing about it is that it was always felt like a party like atmosphere.
Yes.
In those smaller arenas, like you felt like you were a part of something that was growing, and it's now they got to this big level and they're working these big arenas. Now the novelties kind of wore off and they're kind of coming back. I think early on they probably should have ran bigger arenas. But now they kind of, it seems like they need to go back down to those smaller ones, those, 5,000-6,000 seat arenas.
To be fair, this is the only week I thought that you could tell the arena was small. Like, because usually they've got, because it used to be they would run these big arenas and you couldn't tell. Now they've got these small arenas. They're not full. And the crowd is hot. They're shooting it really well. It's like, I feel like Mastery gets a lot of crap because I think he makes some bad decisions production wise, but he's done a much better job than Keith Mitchell of like highlighting the crowd, right?
Yeah.
The big crowds look huge. The small crowds don't look so bad. So I think production wise, you're doing a good job. This was the first week I think we had a super cold, small crowd, you know? But if you make it feel cool, I think they need to change. I think they need to change a lot of what they think about where they should host some of these dynamites. Like, this program wants to emulate WCW in a lot of ways. When Nitro was on the come up, they were doing interesting things with their events. That's a lot of Zane Breslov. Remember, not all of it worked. Not just Club La Vila. Remember, they ran Daytona Beach. The beach, actually. They ran Club La Vila is a good one. They had that other one too that I can't remember the name. They ran in two different places. The Mall of America. They did interesting things that made the show look different. Part of the problem I think AEW has right now is you got so many people who are Vince trained, is they're trying to make this program Vince trained, and you have to stop that. Like, at this point right now, you have to go back to grassroots. You have to start knocking on doors. You have to get, like, Dave. You didn't read the Observer yet this week, but Dave wrote a big long piece on. It felt like the death of AEW, right? And I'm sure I did read
the ticket sales portion of it. So I read the top two stories, the TKO story and the AEW ticket sales story. But it seemed like it was pretty grim. And as we covered, if you guys go to patreon.com/the Mike and JD show and you take a listen to our WCW 2001, I'm not saying that AEW is there. I'm not comparing them to WCW 2001. I'm not doing that. But what I'm saying is that Dave made some predictions early on in the year. And then we went week by week reading the Observers, essentially covering the fall of WCW in 2001 to the WCW invasion and to where it ultimately failed. He predicted what was going to happen, or he warned, if you do this, this is what will happen. And everything he predicted ended up coming out right. Like, say what you want about the guys, that you don't like his star ratings, blah, blah, blah. There's guys out there like Sean Ross Sapp and other guys that might be out scooping him now. But his knowledge of how the business operates and works, I think, is second to none when it comes to the journalism field. And when he's talking about warning signs, I think promoters should heed his warnings and actually read what he's saying and make the necessary changes, because WWE didn't do that and they had a colossal failure on their hands in 2001.
Dave had an interesting tweet today. I'm trying to find it.
I can pull it. Go ahead.
I'm on his Twitter. It was this afternoon. It was like, I hate reading it, but I'll waste time on trying to find this. I hated reading it because I do like this promotion. I do think we need this promotion to work. The difference between WCW right now is the ratings are much better. WCW wasn't winning the night when they were down.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't selling the type of pay-per-views. Like, AEW is still profitable. Like, people go, hey, they made a profit. Well, you don't know what they make in profits. They just had two of their biggest weeks in a row, and there is a come down off that. Because WWE had them the same, right, when they came out of Wembley too. So it's almost like, man, maybe you shouldn't run Wembley. It's kind of bad luck afterwards. Searching through Dave Meltzer's Twitter is god awful because, like, now you got to read through him talking shit to all these nerds for fucking hours.
Yeah, I was saying, if you find the tweet, you send it to me, I can pull it up on the screen. But
okay, waste time for me for a second, Mike. Yeah. I got to find this.
Yeah. Well, it really is scary, the ticket sales thing. And I'm like, at this point, I'm kind of racking my brain. Is like, what could they possibly do to get these numbers back up? Um, you know, they could run smaller venues and then make the crowd seem more hot. I think that would be appropriate, and then get that party like atmosphere that we had in the original days. I think that would be cool. You know, I think one of their band-aids is to go find new and more talent, and big name talent. And I think one of the things that they're probably trying to do, and they might successfully do, is bring in Edge. I don't know that Edge is the answer. And I have not one of those guys that is like an Edge hater or that doesn't respect. I like Edge. I happen to be a fan of Edge, and he's a real famous guy. I think you come in for a temporary bump and then you're going to go right back down to where you were before, maybe even less, right? Because Edge, again, is a temporary band-aid. I think you need young, fresh, hip, cool, new talent that can go out there and get after it. And I think after watching Dynamite yet again this week, I thought the guy that came across as the biggest star to me in the company outside of MJF is Swerve Strickland.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to find him so compelling. He's so tremendous. And I actually sent a text to JD and John Muse earlier this week, and with no context, I said, "Hey, I respect both of you guys, but if either one of you ever says a single bad thing about Prince Nana and his dance, I'm leaving the chat, because I love that brother, man. He is so cool. He's so funny. He's kind of a bumbling idiot. He's an 80s style heel manager, like Jimmy a number 2.
Hart.
He's Jimmy Hart, yeah. And I think he's so great. Him dancing while Cage was beating down Adam Page, and then all of a sudden getting his medicine from the Young Bucks. I thought it was tremendous. Like, the whole bit is great.
I can't find this thing I'm looking for. Dave basically
don't worry about it.
Dave basically kind of tweets something like it says like, I got really good feedback on the AEW thing I wrote from the right people.
Yeah.
Which led me to believe that maybe some important people read what Dave said and took it to heart. So, no, back to Nana. Prince Nana is, like I said, he's Jimmy Hart. If Don Callis is trying to be the new Bobby Heenan, a little more serious than Heenan ever was, to be quite frank. But Nana is absolutely Jimmy Hart. And he's great. He was great in Ring of Honor 15, 20 years ago. Like,
yeah. So
did you find
this is from Dave Meltzer. I'm sharing the screen now. So I should mention the article on AEW. Promotional wars and attendance has been heavily praised to me this morning from those who have read it. Yeah, from those who have read it. So that's what he was saying. Yeah,
that's coded.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
There's
certain things that Dave writes in the Observer, and it's like it's an audience of one. It's he's writing it to get a person's attention because he clearly sees that there's a storm coming and they may not be able to avoid it.
And that's not just a Tony. We saw this in our Patreon shows. He did that to Vince too. Like, you're absolutely. This is what makes Dave a different writer than a traditional, more of a traditional journalist. Is Dave will speak directly, and Dave's got this very like colloquial writing style where he's he's not very polished. And I think by his own admission, he isn't. And it's like he's having a conversation. Like, his writing is very conversational, and it's very much like he's directly saying this to someone. And it really felt like this was Dave. It felt like this was Dave talking to Tony Khan today. It's really what it felt like. Circling back around, Prince Nana is great. Swerve is cool. The difference between WCW is I think that they're trying to make a guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to. Oh, hey, John Muse is in the chat. Just realized that.
Oh yeah.
Our buddy.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to make, like, you can actively see Swerve being elevated at this point, and I think he's nailing it. And you know who else is being elevated? And I feel like you and I deserve our flowers for this one. And I'm sure if Io's still in the chat, Io can back us up. He was a Brace for Impact listener for a long time. We were singing the praises of one W. Morrissey. Yes. And you know what? We shit on the signing when AEW brought him in. We shit on the name. And that brother came in, he worked his tail off, and he got himself over. He had a 1-year run at Impact. And he completely transformed himself, so much so that Tony Khan, who very likely would have not even given him a chance the year prior, when he was coming out of like rehab and all that stuff, he proved himself in Impact. He got on Tony Khan's radar. They brought him in, and Scott Edwards is there too, because I was telling him.
Scotty Rose.
So they brought him in, and you know what? He kicked ass this week with John Moxley. They had a hell of a match, and people are starting to take notice of what we took notice of on our show, Brace for Impact, for over a year, about how great W. Morrissey is, and I'm really glad that people are starting to take notice.
Morrissey was a highlight in Impact. The whole time he was there, he elevated his work game. He elevated his promos. I remember I went to an NXT show and my buddy broke him when he was Big Cass. He was really upset and bothered by some heckling. That dude today would eat him alive, man. I am so proud of how far this dude has come. And I like the swerve. I like the Starks and Bill thing. Like it's got a HBK Diesel vibe to it. Right? Yeah. Like I think there's something there, and they're feuding with, Danielson and Moxley, so they're in big spots, right? I think it's working. Like they're trying. They got their backing. Starks was a guy, like, he got over in like the Austin way a little bit, right? With getting beat by, the Legend is what I mean. Yeah. But not submitting. I think they're going all in on Swerve. Well, it's gonna be a big show this week at coming up at Wrestle Dream. If Swerve beats Hangman, I hope Tony Khan does not get tempted by these, because you're gonna have all these elite twerps, right? These idiots, these sycophants that cry every time the elite lose. Hangman can lose, and they need a heel. They need a super hot heel. Let it be Swerve. Swerve is doing the work of his career right now. I think, like, we did not make Orange. We had the chance to make Orange Cassidy, right? They're going to regret it too. Lanza talked about something on the flagship today that I heard, and I had the same conversation with, I think, the same guy who said we could have gotten to that AEW NXT showdown match. It would have culminated with Orange Cassidy's 1-year reign as the champion. You could have built something big to that, but they didn't. They held back on Orange, and that was a mistake. Do not make this mistake with Swerve Strickland. Do not listen to I almost named
elitists.
Elitists. There you go.
Yeah, don't listen to the elitists. Yeah. Don't listen to those guys. Hangman is going to be fine. I know we're trying to build Hangman back up, but Swerve has lost in every major feud that he's had. He needs this one, and he needs to be elevated to an eventual MJF title match. He needs to have a showdown with MJF. Yeah, and it will, because
it will draw. Swerve's cool, right?
Yeah,
Swerve is cool. Max is in this weird spot right now where fans really like him, and like I think we've moved past the phase of this is feeling disingenuous to this is just the status quo, right? Yeah, I think this evolved. Like, it's over. I don't know if it's drawing, but the bloodline didn't draw until it did, right? Yeah. The bloodline was not a huge draw for the WWE until it just, they stuck with it. And I think this MJF Cole thing will eventually help lead to sales, because it's over. It is over. But they need a villain, man. They need that, and that's what Swerve is. Swerve's a fucking movie star villain, right? He's a Bond villain at this point. Someone told me, my buddy said he's Nino Brown from New Jack City, that Wesley Snipes character.
Wesley Snipes, like, yes.
That's exactly what he is in this role.
Competition starting to get thick. It's the click, so I hope you work your A